Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk about cloth pads. If you think that periods or cloth pads or anything like that is gross, or the thought of cloth diapers is gross, I completely understand that. I used to be like that. Then this video probably just isn't for you unless you're interested in cloth pads. I was never, to be honest, interested in cloth pads at all. Cloth diapers, maybe, just because they would save money. Pads were something that I could coupon and kind of like, or tampons, and get them for cheap. So I never really became interested in them, even before going cruelty free, until my gynecologist had a talk with me. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and people with PCOS are at a higher risk for reproductive cancer, cervical cancer mostly, but other kinds of reproductive cancer. Our chances are higher than the average person. So he had a talk with me, and he said, I want you to seriously look into buying pads and tampons that do not have chemicals in them. And they do make them, and I looked at them in the store and I was like, this shit looks kind of expensive. And I heard about cloth pads and I was like, those look kind of expensive online. So I was like, I'm gonna make my own and try them out. So I found tutorials online. I actually did a sewing tutorial for it. I'll link it below. So I just looked into that stuff and I was like, okay, why not give it a shot? Because I obviously don't want to up my already high risk of cervical cancer or anything like that. And I respect that my doctor was kind of taking a natural approach to things as well. So I was really scared. I looked into them. I was freaked out that they wouldn't work as well. I was freaked out that they would feel gross. Because first of all, I am mostly a tampon person, or I used to be, but I don't really want to spend the money on the natural tampons per se, with the bamboo and all that crap, because I go through a lot of them. And I figured I would just try the cloth pads thing. So anyways, that is my story of why I turned to cloth pads. There's a lot of ways to do the things I'm about to tell you. This is just the way I do it. It's not right or wrong about cleaning them and taking care of them. I've had a lot of questions about them in general and how I take care of them. So that's the purpose of this video. Okay, so I started making my own, and I experimented with different materials and stuff like that. I made probably about 13 of them, and I was like, well, now let's just wait for my period. And I was like, okay, so my period came. At first I spot, and this is a total TMI video, I'm sorry, I spot for a few days. So that was like, that's no big deal. And then when the heavy flow came, I'm like, here we go, this is a real test. I was shocked. First off, the reason I don't wear traditional pads is I hate the plastic feel of them. I feel like they make me sweat down there. I feel like even though they have the sticky stuff, they shift a lot, or they roll up in your panties, or I just don't like, no matter, they're not for me. I do not like them. And I feel like even though they absorb, that I can still kind of feel it, if you know what I mean. I don't know how to explain it, but the cloth pads absorb so much better. I don't have kind of a wet feeling down there as I'm having my period, whereas with the kind of plasticky or the Always or stuff like that, I always feel it, if that makes sense. It's like it just sucks it right up. But I've never, and I have very, very heavy periods sometimes, I have never bled through one of my cloth pads. I have bled through plastic or traditional pads. So I was like, wow. And another thing too is it doesn't feel like you're wearing a pad. It just feels like you're wearing your panties. Even with as thick as I made some of these, as a precaution that oh my gosh, my flow is so heavy, I want to make sure I don't leak through, I still don't feel like I'm wearing a pad. It just feels so much better. I don't know how to explain it. I'm converted now. So that's just kind of how I got started. I don't want to make this video too long, but that is kind of how I got into cloth pads. I'm a very frugal person, so of course I was like, if I can make my own, I'm gonna do that, because the ones online I would love to try, but it's if I can make my own for cheaper, then I'm just going to. That's kind of how I am with everything. So like I said, I just, and okay, another thing is people take like wet bags with them when they're going to be gone from the house from a really long time. I'm going to be real honest, that's not for me. The idea of carrying a bloody pad around in my purse, although another thing is like when you take your pad off and it's like bloody and filled up when it's a traditional pad, it's like really gross. With these, it's all absorbed in and it just looks like a little dried blood on top. I don't know how to explain it. It's not as gross as you would think. Most of the time I am at my house. So if I'm leaving the house for, let's say, 8 hours, then I'm probably going to use a disposable pad and take a few with me. I'm no longer using any tampons unless I have to like swim or something. It's just that what the doctor said really made me think. So I am no longer, like, unless I'm swimming, I'm no longer using tampons. But if I leave the house and we're gonna be gone like all day, and I definitely am not that into it that I want to take a wet bag with me, then yeah, I will use the pads I have stocked up from couponing. I probably have only done that like maybe 3 times where I've gone back to those, and as soon as I put the other ones on, I'm like, oh, I hate this so much. Oh my gosh, it just doesn't feel right. And another thing too is with these snaps, it snaps around your underwear, but it doesn't, like, you know, stick to it. And you would think like, no, I want it to stick to it so it stays in place. But this I found actually moves with me and like shifts and adjusts to the way I'm sitting, if that makes sense. Where sometimes your ones that are stuck on your panties look like folded over and all crazy. I don't know, it's just something I appreciate. So let's move on to, now you know why I do it and how I do it, and that I don't use the wet bags with them, how I care for them. Well, first off, I store them in one of these like tubs from the Dollar Tree in my bathroom. When I am on my period, I wait till my period's over to wash them all. Oh, this is where people do it differently. Some people will soak them in cold water, and I'm like, it's in my underwear, no one's looking at it, so if it does stain, which I don't really have any hideous stains on here, if it does stain, then okay, you know, you got your granny panties from your period that have stains on it. But what I do is I put them in here until my period's over, then I just wash them all. And let me show you guys. What I do is when it's used, I just fold it over like this, and then I take the snaps and I just snap it and throw it in there. Then when my period's over, I take them all, unsnap them, and dump them in the washing machine. Now, the one thing I do, because I don't do the cold soaking immediately or rinse the blood out in my sink, that's kind of gross to me. It's not really necessary with mine. I haven't had a problem where I'm like, oh God, I have to rinse this out right now. Actually, what I do, which I should have mentioned a second ago, before I do all this where I like snap it over and stuff, 7th Generation makes a spray kind of like Shout, except it's like plant derived, natural. You could use Shout even, because the thing is, you should put Shout in the wash and it washes out, whereas all the chemicals and stuff they put in your pad and tampon don't, like, that doesn't get washed out, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, if you want to use Shout, you could. I don't use Shout because it's tested on animals. I use the 7th Generation stuff. 7th Generation made a really great OxiClean, but another thing you can do too, which I'll use the OxiClean, they don't make anymore, but I'm going to order some on Amazon because I was using regular OxiClean that I had stocked up from couponing that I ran out of. They still have their 7th Generation stuff online, like on Amazon you can buy it, but you can't buy it in stores anymore because they're discontinuing it. But sometimes I've forgotten to do the OxiClean thing, and it's been fine. It's been no big deal. But what I was saying, what I do is, so I'll take that 7th Generation spray it down before I fold it over, and then put it in there. So it's got the stain lifter stuff on it already when it goes to be washed like a week later. And then another thing I do is I put it on cold when I wash them, and I put a little bit of OxiClean in there, but I'll be putting the 7th Generation OxiClean in there, and you can actually skip that step. You don't have to do it. I just do it to get the ones like this and this has been used. The ones like this that are white, I want to like brighten back up and get any blood stains out, I will use the OxiClean step. So I'll let it soak for 30 minutes and then it just washes it. I also forgot to say, you can use any detergent on these that you want, I guess. If you're trying to be like low chemical or whatever, then I would suggest using a plant-based, natural, like 7th generation detergent. I use like a plant-based detergent for all my laundry now, so that is what I use. That's cruelty-free. That's what I use on my pads as well. And you also, I forgot to say, if you just are super into drying stuff, you can dry them, but I hear they don't last as long. For me, it doesn't really matter because I can just go make more, but I don't really see a need to dry them and to run the dryer and the gas and stuff like that. Sounds like such a hippie thing. I don't want to waste any gas. No, seriously though, I don't really see a need to. So I hang dry them and they air dry just fine. And that's just, I mean, that's all there is to it. It just kind of becomes something you do. And another great thing about it is you never have like rolled up pads or like tampons in a like ball of tissue in the trash for people to get grossed out. I find that more gross when you're like at somebody's house and or like somebody's at your house and you have like tampons or you see that wad of tissue paper, you just know there's like a tampon or a pad in there, you know what I'm saying? You don't really have that issue with this, and that way Justin doesn't go in the bathroom and see that wad of tissue paper and be like, oh, there's a tampon in there. Not that he thinks that, but you know what I'm saying. So I actually, it's not as gross as I thought. If y'all are thinking this is gross, I thought it'd be way gross. I really thought about it. I was like, okay, I wash the dog, like sometimes Ralph pees in his bedding and I wash it in there. I wash all kinds of gross stuff. It's a washing machine. It washes itself. With the dog stuff, like if Ralph pees or whatever, then I run a bleach cycle afterwards if it's bad. But I'm like, at first I used to be grossed out by like, oh my God, it's going in my washing machine about stuff like that. But then I realized it's a damn washing machine. It washes itself. It's really not that serious. And it's not like this pools of blood are like filling up in your washing machine. It's not that gross. And I just want y'all to know, I thought it was super, super disgusting until I started doing it. I'm like, this is not as gross as I thought. So it's not for everyone. I'm just letting you guys know. I had a lot of questions about why I do cloth padding, what cloth pads are, and how I care for them. So that's pretty much all I do. Once they're dry, I put them back in the box and that's it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below and I'll see you guys later. Bye.